Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about loops. So, if you're a mix engineer, you get sent a song and you see that the drums are a loop, right? It's on one track and you have the kick, snare, and cymbals all on one track. What's the first thing that comes to mind as a mixer? Can't work with the kick, snare, and cymbals separately, right? They're all on one track. Can't balance them out. You can't EQ them separately. So here's something that I did, call it a trick. It didn't take very long. It was very quick. Now, one thing you could do is go off your DAW, go to AI, and try to separate the elements. Get your kick, snare, hi-hat, or ride separate, right? Import that back in. It takes 45 minutes, right? So this took probably 3 minutes, okay? So here is what I'm working with. Take a listen. This is DeShawn Jenkins from New York. Dirty loop.
I beg your pardon. Got me sitting around like I got all day.
So that's a great loop. Everything's cool. But as soon as I start compressing it, saturating it, it's going to bring up the cymbals, right? And what if the cymbals are already loud in the loop, you know? Again, I don't have that individual control. So here's what I did. Really cool trick. So I copied that loop onto 2 other tracks. So we have 3 instances of that loop, just duplicated. So first thing I did was get the kick separated by doing this. First thing, EQ. So I EQ'd out everything besides basically the fundamental of the kick drum, which sounded like this. If you don't have bassy speakers, you probably don't hear much. But I needed that strong signal off the kick, in this case, to trigger a sample. So I'm going to be blending my own samples in with the loop. It's a very like lo-fi loop, and it needed that a little more punch. And again, I can control the low end of my kick. I can control the EQ of my snare separately from the loop and blend it in. So there's that signal, and it gets to the trigger. Let me go back. Right, getting to the trigger, and I can put a gate. So here's the gate. You can use any gate because that kick drum is by far the loudest signal because of that EQ. Now I could use this and actually EQ this and blend it into the loop and do my thing, right? But what I decided to do in this case is not add more of the same sound. I wanted a different sound, so I used that clean kick to trigger my own sample, which in this case kind of sounds weird maybe for this song, but it needed some top end. It needed some things. Here's the I didn't have that much top end, so that's what I ended up adding to this loop with the kick. Now I can have as much low end as I want. I can have the kick as loud as I want, right? Same thing with the snare. Check this out. So first thing I did, there's my snare sample. How I got that was first get rid of that low end. So the trigger can read that really the snare is coming through, and that's what's, you know, or it can come through a gate, right? So if you take a mix of drums and you get rid of the kick, you could probably get the snare drum to pop enough to use that to trigger a sample. So it sounded like this. But that's enough now where I could take that, which hits the trigger. It sounds like that. Put on the gate. There's the gate. And there's my snare. Check that out. Again, I could blend that in, do what I want with it, or I could use it to trigger a sample. That's what I did. So here's the sample that I added. Right? Pretty amazing. the whole thing probably took 5 minutes rather than AI separation and right everything you got to go through to try to separate things. And here's the final sound. So here's the loop, and then I'll turn on what I added. And again, the original loop. It's cool. It's just needed that extra punch, right? So there you go. Really cool trick. I couldn't believe it works so well. I haven't worked with loops in a while mixing, and something I've done in the past. I'm like, let's see if it works. It worked. I think most of the time it'll work. So there you go. Again, make sure you are subbed. Lots of stuff coming. Whatever's going on in the studio, mostly mixing. And I'll see you guys soon.